Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my channel, The Real Estate Real. I'm your host, Tyler, and today what I want to talk to you guys about is the escrow process. The escrow process is the period in which the offer is accepted and the new homeowners go on record. So this video is going to be pretty important for any new agent, first-time home buyers, or just a refresh if you haven't bought a home in a while, just to give you an understanding of what the escrow process is like and how it works. So escrow is determined by the way the offer is written. A normal escrow is normally within 30 days. However, during a competitive market like we have been lately in 2021, it is a seller's market. So during the competitive market, the contract days are changed. So it makes it more competitive offer, like I said. The days are usually changed to around 25 or 21 days, depending on how fast your lender could get everything done. So that's the escrow process on a superficial level. Now let's get into talking about more of the deeper things that come into play during the escrow process. The escrow process, like I said, it's typically when the offer is accepted till when the homeowner goes on record. And during this brief period, the 30-day period, 21 or 25 days, you have to make certain deadlines. The first deadline that you have to worry about as a buyer is the initial deposit. The initial deposit is what it sounds like. It's the first deposit you make towards the home. It's typically it's part of the down payment, and that is typically 1% of the offering price of what you offered. So let's say the home is offered for $480,000. You'd be taking $4,800 over to the title company. However the buyer wants to do so, it could be by wire transfer, personal check. So that's the initial deposit. That's the first thing you'll have to worry about. Some agents do refer to this as the earnest money deposit. It was just changed to the initial deposit recently. So that's just something to keep in mind. If a realtor ever says to you earnest money deposit, then you just have to think of the initial deposit, but they'll probably correct themselves because it's now the initial deposit instead of the earnest money deposit. Then the next thing that I want to talk to you guys about during making deadlines is the contingency days. During escrow, the buyer and the buyer's agent will have to pay attention to different contingencies that will be in place at the time. So the initial deposit, like I said, is due within the first 3 days. But there are also other contingencies. As a buyer, you want to make sure everything is in proper working order for the home, and that the home is safe to move into. So therefore you have different licensing operators who will go and take a look at the home. These different licensing officers are the big three that clients normally pay attention to. That's the home inspection, the roof inspection, and the pest inspection. The pest inspector will tell you more information regarding some of the wood and what's going on with the wood, if there's any termites that are threatening or defecting the home, and what those repairs might be. So a typical pest inspection usually costs around $125. It depends who you personally want to hire as the buyer or the buyer's agent. So that's the person that you'll be using moving forward just for the pest inspection. These options are up to you, I should say, when you are on the buyer side, because you're going to be the one that's moving into the home. So the big three, like I said, that's the pest inspection going over. The next is the roof inspection. The roof inspection is done by a licensed contractor who obviously is working on the roofs and stuff like roofs. And the job that he will do is that he'll inspect any damages, broken tiles, or leaks in the roof, and he will also give a repair cost. So normally he's just going to go on the roof and take a look at the roof, make sure the roof isn't leaking or anything like that, because obviously as a buyer, you're not going to want to move into a home where anything's leaking, or that's going to cause significant damage over the next couple of years. That just wouldn't be beneficial to the buyer. So that's the roof inspection. And then the next is the home inspection. Home inspection is pretty much what it sounds like, but a home inspector does a more thorough job of everything. He does the interior and the exterior of the home, and there's a ton of things that the home inspector is going to be looking for during the process of the inspections. You can get a better idea if you want. I use Pillar to Post for my home inspections. So Matt does have a YouTube channel, Matt from Pillar to Post, if you want to go over and look at his YouTube channel to see what it's like to do a home inspection. Like I said, there's a ton of things that go into a home inspection, which include pretty much looking at the toilets and make sure everything is secured properly for the toilets, making sure all the water and water pressure is good, all that stuff, making sure there's no defects in the home as well, so that there's not going to be any safety issues when the buyer moves into the home. So like I said, that's just pretty much a brief overview of what the home inspector does do, but he does a ton of things. So I would recommend going over there to Matt's YouTube channel and checking everything out. The home inspection, the pest inspection, and the roof inspection are usually due within 10 to 12 days. On the offer agreement, when you're working with a realtor, basically the realtor should tell you how long these things are. That's where proper communication comes in, because these are contingencies that are in place. The contingency is in place so that if something goes wrong, you have the ability to either negotiate the terms or just back out of the contract. And when you back out of the contract, you're going to want that initial deposit that you already put in, the $4,800, so to speak. If we're using that example, you're going to want that $4,800 back. So if you remove any of these contingencies just on their own, that takes away your ability to get the initial deposit back. So that's why you want to have all these contingencies in place, and they're very important, like I said, especially for the safety of the home and the safety of the buyer when they're moving into the home. You want to know something that you're moving into is going to be safe and proper if you have, just for yourself or the family, of course. So those are the big three, like I said: the pest, the roof, and the home inspection. And I didn't mention how much the roof inspection costs. The roof inspection is fairly low priced. It's usually around $75. And the home inspection is one of the more expensive things that you'll have to take care of during the escrow process. The home inspection can cost anywhere from $400 to about $700, depending on what package you want to buy. I know pools are usually a little more expensive too, so it's like adding an additional unit to the package when you have like a pool or any other units that you have to get on that aren't normally included in that package. So you could take a look around and use what home inspector you like to use. Out here in Elk Grove, California, in Sacramento, I like to use Pillar to Post, so that's a really good one. So I did forget to mention that after all the inspections are done, you can request for repairs to be done on the house. As a seller, you're not going to be 100% invested in the house still, so I do recommend, if you are in the buyer situation, that you request the repairs yourselves and do the repairs yourself, because the seller can accept to fix some of the repairs on the house, but he will no longer be living in the home. So it's something to think about, that he might not do 100% of the best work. You can trust that seller if you want to, but that's all up to you. If I'm going to go and live in a house, my tip would be basically to, do the repairs myself. That way I know they were done by somebody I feel comfortable with and that I trust. Another option for you is you can ask for a credit at the close of escrow. A credit at the close of escrow will go towards the closing costs or other reoccurring costs. So that would make it easier to pay for closing costs if you already were going to split the closing costs 50-50. It depends on what marketing you're in and how your offer is written. If you're going to split the closing costs 50-50 and they do credit the closing costs, a lot of the closing costs will be taken care of by that credit as well as the sellers. So that's one option you have as well. And now I want to get into the different contingencies that are in place as well. We talked about the pest, the roof, and the home inspection, and now I want to talk about the loan contingency. The loan contingencies are normally done within 17 days of the escrow period. If you want to shorten those, you do have to ask the lender at the time if they're able to shorten the loan contingency, because they're going to be the one that has to do the proper paperwork in place, so that when your buyers are ready, they're turning in all their W-2 statements, they're turning in all their pay stubs and things like that. The buyer and the lender will be the ones working together, so that's why you have to ask the loan officer if you can shorten the loan contingency. It all depends how fast the loan officer can get the loan funded and everything like that. So that's the loan contingency. This is why it's important to keep an active communication between everybody, because like I said, there's a big process in which things are going on, and you want to make sure that all these parts are moving. Because let's say that you don't remove a contingency on time, that in that case, the seller or the listing agent can pretty much offer a request to perform, which means that you have to get one of these things. You would have to get one of these things done within a certain time frame, so that you don't get kicked out of the contract, pretty much, because the seller has the opportunity, if you're not performing, to kick you out of the contract. That's why the contract's in place, so that you do meet these requirements. And that might be a reason why the seller accepted your offer in the first place, because like I said, when you're trying to make it more competitive, you put those in place so you get more things done within a shorter time frame, because sellers want to move the process along as quickly as possible and know that their home is off the market and out of their hands, pretty much. So the next thing I want to talk about is the appraisal contingency. The appraisal contingency is usually done within 17 to 21 days as well. The appraisal is done by a licensed appraiser, and the lender will order the appraisal, so that appraisal will go out and look at the property. What the appraiser is doing is he's taking different circumstances around the area of some homes that have sold, and different fixtures or anything else in the house, anything else that's going to contribute to the rising cost of the house, he's going to look into. But what he's overall doing is he's determining if the price that you offer for the home is the price that the home is worth. So let's say that you offered $840,000 for a home, and the appraiser only comes in and says that the home is worth $810,000. Therefore, you'd have to discuss the appraisal gap in the offer, so to see if the buyer would want to pay that additional cost, because the bank isn't going to loan you $840,000 so that you can get it done if the house is only worth $810. So I hope that makes sense. The appraisal contingency can cause some buyers to drop out of escrow, because if the appraisal isn't listed right and you won't come up on the offering price, then the deal can essentially back out, because the loan won't be funded to the buyer. So that's a big deal, and you do have it in case that you do have those contingencies in place. But if this does happen around this time, you'll as the buyer, I do have to say that you would lose money on the pest inspection and the roof inspection, as well as the home inspection and the appraisal. So you would lose out on maybe $1,000 during that time period. So that's why it's important to know that you might want to write an appraisal gap. That's in a residential purchase agreement. You might want to write in an appraisal gap, or you might want to think about this ahead of time. So if the appraisal does come in higher, will your buyer be paying this price, that price for the home, that they could cover the other $30,000? So after all the contingencies have been removed and the funds are in place, that's pretty much a wrap. So like I said, those are going to be the contingencies that are going to be in place: the home inspection, the pest inspection, roof inspection, loan contingency, and appraisal contingency. All those are factoring into during the time of escrow that everything is a smooth transaction. At the point all those are done, the buyers are officially considered the homeowners. Title will pretty much tell you that your homeowners are now on record after the loan contingencies have been signed, and everything's done with the loan contingency as well as the appraisal contingency. After those two are done, congratulations, of course, you're pretty much a new homeowner, or congratulations on selling your home, because it's a long process. It can be a long process, and it can be kind of stressful for folks who aren't really in tune to everything that's going to be going on at the time. So that's why I want to set the expectations for you of what escrow can be like. I hope that was obviously beneficial to anybody watching this. And if you do have any questions, put questions below. I could also make additional videos if you need more content on what was going on in the video, what is going on in the escrow process. If you have any questions, I would love to answer them. Don't forget to like and subscribe this video, and I thank you for tuning in and watching today. It was my pleasure, and have a great day.